Thank you for joining us as we recognize Women's History Month. To enjoy more library programming for you and your family, subscribe to DC Public Library on YouTube, download the DCPL app, and follow us at DCPL on Facebook and Twitter. Take care.
Hi, this is Moko Ochoa, and welcome to the new chapter of the Lit Lounge here at the MLK Library in Washington, D.C. We are starting a new chapter, and we're so excited to bring you along with us. And speaking of new chapters, the first guest, her book is all about new chapters. And we're so excited to welcome Bevy Smith as she brings her book, Revelations, Lessons from a Mother, Bestie, and Auntie. I am so happy to see you, Bevy Smith. Welcome to the Lit Lounge.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, yes. And we're talking about your wonderful book, Revelations, which is amazing. I know you're proud of this book.
I'm very proud of this book. I've had a lot of really great successes in my careers. That's with the plural S because I've had several careers. But this book, Revelations Lessons from My Mother, Auntie Bestie, is the thing I'm most proud of. And it's because, as you know, writing is a very solitary sport. And
Mhm.
so it feels really good to know that I was able to complete this book, even though I was under great duress. While
Mhm.
I was writing the book, I was I was at a job that I was not happy in.
Mhm.
And then while I was doing my final edits, George Floyd was murdered. There was a global pandemic. I had coronavirus, and my dad passed away of coronavirus. So I was able to. I
Right.
mean, the fact that the book is here and it exists and it's in people's homes. I mean, I'm just like, you did that, Bevy.
Was it a scary thing to reveal? Like, were there things that you left out, or did you give us everything? And how was that? Is it a scary process? I'm sure.
I left a lot of things out because, I knew I wanted this book to be a self help book. And as much as it's a memoir, it really is me telling these stories and these experiences so other folks can learn lessons from my life and then hopefully be inspired and also to perhaps identify challenges in their own life that mirror mine and say, oh, okay, well, yeah, she took that path and that worked out really nice. Maybe I'll try it that way instead of going this way. You know what I mean? But it wasn't scary for me because I knew that this book would be cathartic and I knew it would be a huge release. I knew that when I wrote this book, I said, oh, this is going to put me into the next chapter of my life, literally. And so I'm very happy to see that it's done that. The book has been in the world now for a little over a month. And so many people are writing to me to tell me that they're inspired by it, that they loved it, that they connected with it. And that's exactly why I wrote the book.
I was so tempted to text you so many times to say, like, this book was exactly what I needed when I got it. I had just finished Miss Tyson's book,
Mm.
um, you know, which showed that she did things her way. And
Yes.
then your book coming right after it, it was like everything she said, you cemented it. It's like, this is the life lived. This is what she was talking about. Like, this, we're seeing it in you. So not only it's an icon, that we're saying Cicely Tyson can do it, then comes our sister, our
Yes.
auntie, our Bevy, who's saying the same thing. And you're allowing us to see exactly how you did it, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, thank
Now,
you so much for that compliment. When I interviewed Miss Tyson 3 days before she passed away, and I had read her book, and I was floored by how much I identified with her story as well.
mhm.
And so it makes me very happy to see to say that you feel like my book is like kind of a part of the continuum of what it was that she was setting out to do. I certainly have so much respect and reverence for my the folks who have gone before me. My parents. My dad was 95 when he passed away. My mom is 93. So I love my elder statespeople, and I can sit up and listen to them all day. And so, excuse me, I've taken in a lot of that information, and I think that that's the reason why I've been successful in a lot of ways. It is because of having that older person that kind of is a wise sage guide,
Okay. So
and
what
that's
is
why
it about?
that's why the auntie part is in the book, because
Right.
that's who I am for my young girls. And by the way, if you are over the age of 35, do not call me auntie. You move into the little sister or into the bestie category. But you okay. So we just need to clear that up.
Okay. Okay. What is it about Harlem and Harlem women and that makes you all so tough, but and still, tough and style and there's something about Harlem women that I saw in the theme running through both books. So what is it about Harlem women?
I think Harlem is just such a dynamic character, right? Harlem is not a destination or just a place, a location. It is literally a character. When you walk on the streets of Harlem, you feel the energy, you feel the persona. The only other place I've ever really, well, I felt that in several places all over the world, but the place that comes closest to me in America to match Harlem as far as energy goes is New Orleans. New Orleans is a person, okay? New Orleans is not a location. That is a person. That's a living, a breathing, vibrant spirit.
Yes. Yes.
Harlem is that as well. And I think that, when you're a woman and you're in Harlem, well, one, you're used to being adored and you're used to being fabulous. You know, um, that's just a part of the like kind of cultural DNA of this community. We dress well. We will put on a fancy outfit for no reason at all.
Hmm.
Whenever you would see Miss Tyson out and about, she was always done to the nines, and all the wig changes and all the moments, and so that's a very big part of it. And I talk about it in my book that my mom was my first fashion icon. Always very stylish, always well done, and she cleaned houses. And I remember, she cleaned homes, but she didn't wear uniforms. She wore old clothes of hers to clean the houses. And she was not a traditional kind of downtrodden person like you would see in The Help. She was fabulous. She went to work in fabulous clothes. And then when she got to the residence that she was going to clean, she would change into her old clothes, clean that house. And then when she got back on the Long Island Railroad, she'd be back in her fabulous garments and everything. That's a Harlem woman.
Hmm.
Another group of Harlem women that really inspired me fashion wise were the barmaids. These are the women that would helm these bars that were filled with testosterone, but they would rule the roost. It was the old iron fist with the velvet glove technique, and I just love them. I love their dynamic updos. I love their cleavage bearing jumpsuits. I love their sky high platform shoes. I love their outlandish makeup. I love their extravagant nails and their fluttering butterfly esque, eyelashes. I loved everything about them, and they still live in me. I have a business dinner with Bevy, and
Hmm.
every time I get up to make a speech, I feel like I'm the ultimate barmaid. I'm the hostess with the mostest.
All right. All right. So tell us about Little Brown Bevy growing up in Harlem. Tell us about her. And by the way, her birthday is when?
November 2nd.
Oh, and I'm November 7th. So
Oh,
this
hello,
still resonates.
Scorpio girl.
Oh, Scorpio.
Oh, well, you got it
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
But you are
Uh,
unstoppable and unflappable. Okay,
yes.
okay, now
Yes.
I
So
get it.
what is it about? What do you think's different about Scorpio women? I'll ask you that
Very
first.
passionate. We're passionate. We're tenacious. And we're very intuitive, and we know that. And so we don't do a lot of second guessing of ourselves. We're a very confident breed of woman. But we're also very sensitive and
Yeah.
have a very soft side, which brings us to Little Brown
Little
Bevy.
Brown Bevy.
Little Brown Bevy is who I am at my core in my book. There's a Red Soul Proposition chapter, and I talk about, everyone. has this dynamic brand in them. They have their own personal brand, and
Mhm.
I use the example of Christian Louboutin, the shoe, coming into the American market and
Mhm.
usurping Manolo Blahnik, which was the it shoe. Like if you remember
Right.
Sex in the City, Kathy
Exactly.
Bradshaw spent $40,000 on Manolo Blahniks. By the
Right.
time the movie comes along, the girls are no longer wearing Blahniks; they're wearing Louboutins. How does
Hmm.
something like that happen? Well, it's because Kristen Louboutin had a red soul. That's really the biggest difference. And they knew how to
Hmm.
market that red soul. So I put the question forth: who are you? What's your red soul? And the way you find that is you dig deep and you find out who you are at your core. Who I am at my core is Little Brown Bevy. She's a curious, adventurous girl. She's very loving. She's very sensitive. She's bookish. She's nerdy, and she's just like a really sweet girl, always with a open spirit and a big smile on her face. So that's Little Brown Bevy. And then I asked the question of who are you at your core? I mean, how are you being perceived? And
Hmm.
for me, for many years, I was perceived as a fabulous, high flying fashionista, a picture on wheels. If you know, yeah, I was tough. Miranda Priestley and Devil Wears Prada is someone that I certainly identified with. And then I realized that that wasn't serving me because when you're a woman like that, when you're perceived as a woman who has it all under control and really doesn't need any help, and also you're a bit of a misery, not only to others but also to yourself. Um,
Hmm.
so what's that all about? What are you really getting besides, kind of this persona, this icy, steely persona, which I guess for some people feels like protection, but for me, it started to feel like an albatross. It started to feel like it was doing more harm than good, and so then I
Hmm.
had to figure out how I wanted to be perceived. And that all went back to Little Brown Bevy. I wanted people to know I was sensitive and sweet. I wanted people to know that I loved art and architecture. I wanted people to know that I was incredibly close to my family and they were the most important things to me. And so I started to let that part of myself show up, the Little Brown Bevy show up. And guess what? My life changed because of it.
Right.
Little Brown
Right.
is the best part of me. And we all have a Little Brown Bevy. She's named something else. What's your Little Brown Bevy called?
Oh, my little brown bevy, it was the nerd. Like I am, that's why I talk to authors. I used to just read and read and read, get in trouble for reading all the time, in school, even with textbooks
Wow.
over my book. So, that was the quiet one that wanted to just have her books and read. Sometimes be with my friends, laugh, but I could escape in a good book. And why your book resonated so much with me, two things. One is the reconciliation of that, the little brown bevy, and then this persona that we put on that we want the world to see. And it's like we're told, well, I know for me a big struggle was, well, you have if you want to get ahead, if you want you've got to be this person. Okay, but I'm also this person. And I don't know that I want to be this person all the time.
Mhm.
So showing you reconciling that, I think a lot of us women deal with who do you want us to be? And
Yeah,
what will it take for us to get ahead?
yeah,
And you really reconciling that in this book
yeah.
for us.
Yeah, but I also stopped asking, who they wanted me to be, and I had to figure out who I wanted to be. You know, um, wanted to be my,
Yes.
and so
Yes.
what?
Well,
Mhm.
tell us about Milan before we move into all of that, because
Oh,
that's the meat of it. That's the meat of everything. So tell us
yeah,
about what happened in Milan.
yeah. So, I was 33 years old. I was working at Vibe magazine. I was the fashion and beauty advertising director. I was responsible for about bringing in about I don't know $5 to $10 million a year into the business. So a very high pressure job. My job consisted of me traveling to Milan and Paris, sometimes London, sometimes Rome, Florence, to break fashion business, luxury fashion business in Vibe magazine, which is a black and brown magazine. And of course, everyone reads it, but it's about urban music, black music, in the culture, and so those that's really who our audience was. Now, when you think about luxury fashion, you don't necessarily think about black and brown people. Certainly, the luxury fashion houses didn't think about black and brown people. So it was my job. I was tasked with going over to Europe and making these folks see that we were worthy as a consumer. We were worthy of being spoken to. We were already buying the stuff. You might as well come and support us in advertising. You might as well, think about, putting some of us in your ads, different things like that. And so I was really successful. I did it. I broke Gucci and Prada and Dior and Armani and Dolce and Gabbana and all these different brands. I did it. And so when I'm 33 years old, I'm probably maybe 3, 4 years into my job at Vibe magazine, and I'm arriving in Milan like I had been doing. By that time, this was probably like my literally probably 50th trip to Milan, maybe even more, maybe even a higher number. So what was once a very exciting, thrilling thing, and you start to feel very much like, yes, I've made it.
Right.
Darling, I'm from Harlem. I'm from 150th Street and 8th Avenue, and look at me now in this palatial
Any girl would
space.
kill
You know,
for that
right?
job.
How
Any girl would kill for that job.
any girl would kill for that job, right? Especially a girl from my community, a black woman, who came from a very humble background. Of course, this is a big moment. But I'm at the age of 33, and I'm just like, okay, I'm over this.
Hmm.
But I don't even know why. And I get into that hotel room, and I'm surrounded by all the gifts from all the fancy fashion houses, and I'm like, this cannot be my life. Is this all there is? Which is a weird
Yeah.
thing to say when you're surrounded by luxury. After you've just gotten off a first class transatlantic flight, after you've checked into your corner suite, which is, held for you every single time during the collections. They always know
Right.
that that's the Principessa Smith's room, this corner,
Hmm.
suite. And still I was miserable. And I realized that I had to change my life. And I didn't know how I was going to change my life, which is why it took 5 years between that meltdown in Milan to then I actually went and took another job over at Rolling Stone magazine. But it took 5 years between that meltdown in Milan to me quitting my job at Rolling Stone magazine and deciding that I was going to attempt to become a creative. And
Right.
I told my boss I was going to quit to sing, to dance, to write, to act, to juggle, to be a fire eater, to be a tightrope walker, to be a DJ, a photographer, whatever and anything that I've ever been interested in, I was going to pursue it. And that
Right.
all stems from being in Milan and having a full-on meltdown.
Right. Right. It's funny. I had the same kind of, not same kind of moment, but I remember it made me laugh because at one point I was so unhappy with what I was doing. And I was actually in Paris working with a client. And I remember being in the Louvre at my calling my cousin in New York, bawling. And she picks up the phone and after she lets me go, and she says, Mona Lisa's upstairs. You're in the middle of Paris and you're calling me crying? Girl, you better but what people don't understand is that there could be 8 pieces together, but the two that are missing to make the perfect 10, if they're not there, you're just uncomfortable and it just gets worse and worse and worse.
And you start living a life that is a full-on illusion. It is it is deceptive. And you are not only deceiving others, you're deceiving yourself, which is the worst thing you can possibly do. In my book, I quote good old Teddy Pendergrass. You can't hide from yourself. Everywhere you go, there you are.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what you experienced in the middle of the Louvre, and that's certainly what I experienced in Milan. It was like
Hmm.
looking at myself and like, I know that I should be grateful. I know that this is a dream job. I know those things. But I also know I'm not happy. So we're gonna have to do something about that. And so
Right. It seems like you've always been
but I did.
okay. It seems like you've never been afraid to um break out and carve your own path despite what everyone else was doing. It seems like you've been doing that your entire life, really. With the girls at the table who were all going to this high school and you decided No, I'm going to this because you're carving out a different life for yourself. You've never been afraid to do that. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, I mean, honestly, it really was that being bullied in junior high school that really was the catalyst for me being able to manifest and continually change my life throughout all these years. It really starts with 11-year-old Bevy, and I was at that time Beverly. Um, and once I succeeded in breaking away from the mean girls, from the bullies, and I took control of my own life. Like I literally decided I was not going to go to the same high school as my tormentors. It's like, now that doesn't make a lot of sense. They want me to come to this high school with them for what? So I can continue to pay for their lunch, so they can talk down to me, so that I could be just like the handmaiden to all of them. That doesn't really work for me. So it can't get any worse if I just go to a different school. So I think a lot of times people are very fearful of change, right? Even if they're miserable in their present day circumstances, they fear change. And my whole thing has always been, well, shoot, if you're in a bad situation, you might as well take a chance and do something different because it might get better. It just might get better. And at the very
Mhm.
worst, it remains kind of like the same. You know what I mean? I'm not of the philosophy of out of the frying pan into the fire.
Mhm.
I don't believe in that. I don't subscribe to that. So I did that, and I changed high schools, and that was the beginning of these constant metamorphoses that I'm always on the path of. You know what I mean? It's my life has been a constant journey of that, and it was all because that was successful. So I'm 13 years old, and I decided to go to a different high school. And then I turn 14, and I go to a different high school, and it works. And I get to be MC Bevsky instead of Beverly Smith, the nerd.
Mhm.
I was like, yes, Mama, I made it. And then I continually did it throughout the years.
Yeah.
So it was really that gave me, in the book I say, you let your past successes fuel your future successes. And that's
Mhm.
what I've been doing. That's what I continually build on. Right now at the age of 54, I'm embarking on a new thing, and it's been glorious
Okay. Okay.
for everyone.
Okay. Do you think that that our evolution, do you think that we keep evolving? Do you think that, there's still so much more for you
There's
to evolve into?
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's proven that there's so much more for us to evolve into. But I do believe that so many people, most people are stagnant. And I think if you're looking at um, Black people that have made it, a lot of times we are really stagnant because, we come from backgrounds where maybe we're one to two to three generations out of abject poverty and discrimination and things like that. So when we get these prestigious positions and when we start making a certain amount of money, now who are we to change? Why would we? What you talking about? You're gonna quit something? What are you talking about? You're not fulfilled. And I think a lot of times we just stay in these things because they make us money, and we know that what that means. And I think that when you look at white people who have not had to deal with systemic racism and redlining and healthcare disparities and different things like that, they sit up and dare to dream all day long. That's the reason
Hmm.
why so many self-help books are written by them, because
Hmm.
guess what? It's a lot easier for them to dare to dream. I really do believe that. And because they don't have the generational traumas that we have, and
Right.
they don't have the same, like when I love Eat, Pray, Love, but when I read that and it's like, okay, she just took off, she divorced her husband, left the husband, and decided to like go travel the world. And literally, like I was able to do that, but it took me 5 years to have to figure out how I was going to do that.
Hmm.
I think she
Hmm.
did that with like within a few months or something, maybe within a
Right. Right.
yeah. I mean, who gonna pay my bills? Okay, you know what I mean? Who's gonna help my parents out? So I have to think about all those things. And so yeah, I just think that for us, a lot of times we have these great lofty gigs and these things that we've worked for, and a lot of times we're afraid to let go of those. those
Hmm.
shiny accolades and the things that we've worked so hard to achieve. But for me, what I found is that um, the tenacity that got me to where I was as a fashion advertising executive, um, that remains. So everything that I continue to do, every journey that I embark upon, and every new challenge that I rise up to face, I bring that with me. So I mean, literally, I'm not surprised that I'm successful again. Not at
Okay.
all. I wouldn't have quit my job if I thought I was going to be just broke, starving artist. No, ma'am. I was not.
Right.
Was not put here for that. So I kind of knew a few things about myself.
Okay. Okay. Tell me about tell us about the artist way and how it changed your life. And by the way, I ordered it as soon as I finished that chapter. And I do my morning pages every day.
Isn't it
So
great? The
so
morning
tell
pages
us about that.
are helpful.
How,
The morning pages are so great. For me, the morning pages, the artist way overall, I'll just put it, I'll sum it up like this. I dated a lot of artists and a lot of creatives. And I dated men in fine arts. I dated men that were comedians, rappers, singers, all these. I was always drawn to people. This is my thing. If you told me that you had never had a 9 to 5 job, I was instantly enthralled. It's like, oh my God, that's amazing. So what you mean to tell me that you were a child and you
mhm,
knew that you were going to just be a creative and you were
mhm.
never going to have a job? And if they said yes, I'd just be like, take me now. And it was
Right.
because I wanted that life. I craved that life, but I got to tell you, I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think that was for me. I thought a creative was someone else. I thought I was a muse to creatives. I didn't know that I was a creative, and it was the artist way that uncorked that for me. The
Right.
artist
Right.
way let me know, allowed me to understand that I
Mhm.
too was a creative,
Right.
and it was a game changer. I mean, those
Right.
artist dates where you go and you do whatever it is that you love to do by yourself. I mean, I used to go rollerblading. I would go to one woman shows. I would go to the zoo. I would go to a grassy knoll in Central Park. I mean, all these different things, just whatever it is
Mhm.
that I wanted to do. And I would just be creative in those spaces and just exploration. That's also a big luxury. And I think a lot of times too, um, women, black women, we don't have the luxury of exploration. That's
Mhm.
why I love the whole self-care movement, but I want women to get out of the idea that self-care is like a bubble bath or like shopping. Self-care is like, it's so much more than just surface things. It's about just having the ability to exhale and to just take in the world as it is. Like, once we're done with this interview, I cannot wait to go outside. The sun is shining,
Mhm.
and I'm going to go outside with no damn agenda. That is self care,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
able to be.
Exactly. Exactly. We don't see we tend to overlook just the little things in life that make us happy or that would make us happy. I was in Harlem this summer and that was such self-care. So I'm going through a separation. So my children were with their father
Okay.
for a month, and I took myself to Harlem. And every day I walked outside and got some fresh fruit, saw the different languages, smelled the food, the walked down to St. Nicholas Avenue, and those things that just feed your soul. And they don't have to be expensive. They don't have to, but whatever feeds your soul. So yes, I do. It is changing me. And I have to thank you for that as well. You've brought me all these books. And I think you're making me move to Harlem too, but that's another story.
Oh, come on,
But
come on, we would love to have you. And oh, we would love to have you. And let me tell you something. This summer, this pandemic summer, oh, we did the damn thing in Harlem. It was
yes,
fabulous. It
yes.
fabulous. We walked everywhere. We dined outside, of course, and then that meant that we were able to be a part of the community I really feel like my community, of course, we were hardest hit because Black people were hardest hit in the pandemic, but we still like we flourished. You know, you just saw people looking out for each other. As a matter of fact, you know, when my dad passed away in April, um, you know, it was impossible to get. It was still very early on in the pandemic, and my friend Sidra Smith, whose sister is Tasha Smith, Sidra herself is a film producer. She's amazing.
Okay.
And so she hit me up right when the pandemic happened in like March. She was like, "Oh, we should start a Harlem like WhatsApp trail so that we can all be connected because a bunch of us are single and all that kind of stuff." And it's like, okay, great. My dad died. I talked to my doctor friends, and they were like, "Well, your mom does not need to go to that funeral." And I was like, "Well, I don't think that's going to happen." They were like, "It's really dangerous." Remember April, they didn't know anything. Remember, it was still the
Yeah.
like they knew nothing about this disease. It was just
Right.
such a mystery. My mom's 90. She was 92 at that point. So they were like, "I don't think she should go." I said, "Well, that's not going to happen." So they were like, "Well, then she needs an N95 mask. She needs a hazmat, blah, blah, blah." You know, you couldn't get an N95 mask. So I put out the call on the Harlem line. Baby, when I tell you, them folks showed up with water, hand sanitizer, N90, because they also said that my entire family had to wear N95s because we couldn't be in there in the
Mhm.
chapel, you know, around my mom with just regular masks. We had to have the toughest, you know, most secure mask. And we got, I think I received 20 N95 masks. But that's why I love my community because it is a community, you know, and I talk
Mhm.
about it in my book. And as a matter of fact, the last acknowledgement in my book is Harlem. You know,
Yes. Yes.
that's,
Yes.
I'm just gonna read y'all what I say
Please do. Please do.
about my good old home, honey.
Mhm.
Thank you, Harlem, for giving me the confidence to withstand the judgmental worlds of fashion, advertising, and entertainment. In Harlem, I'm celebrated, not just tolerated. Uptown girl for life. The last place I
Okay.
finished.
All
Uptown
right.
girl
All
for life.
right.
Yeah.
Well, COVID changed, definitely changed a lot of lives. It made a lot of us really stop and take a look at ourselves. And again, why your book is so timely, and start to think of, well, I can't do this anymore. And then I'm locked in four walls with myself. I've got to face myself. What do I really want to do? What is it that I really want to do? Now that I may not have to pay rent or mortgage or something, I don't have to pay the same amount of bills. What can I transition and do into what would really make me happy?
Mhm.
So the steps that you give us are: step one, what is the first step?
Wow, I think the first step is to come clean with yourself and admit that you're unhappy with your present situation. And I think that so many people are unable to do that. So it's easy as it sounds, it's not that easy. It's a very tough thing. So you have to acknowledge that you want something to change. Then once you do that, then you have to start. When I was in Milan, I wrote down the things that made me feel bad in my life, you know, and a
Mhm.
lot of it had to do with my work, but some of it had to do with my personal relationships. I was a shopaholic. I won't call myself a sexaholic because I know now that just liking to have a lot of sex doesn't make you a sexaholic. But the way I was going about it was less than fulfilling. I'll put it that
Okay.
way.
Okay.
You know, and then of course there was my career that was. Oh, and there was one other personal thing. I was not present for my family in the way I wanted to be.
Right.
And
Right.
and then with the career stuff, I just was like, this feels like Groundhog's Day. I
Hmm.
feel so stifled. I feel like I'm on repeat. I feel like, um, is this all there is? And I wrote all
Hmm.
those things out, and then I wrote specific times when I felt less than in the life that I was currently inhabiting. And then I looked at that list and I was like, okay, so what can we do to make sure that we don't feel that way? Because I think a lot of times people will try to make surface changes. Because, of
Hmm.
course, that's easier to do than excavating and digging deep. and finding out what's really going to make you happy. It's like, oh, I'll change jobs, but you're doing the same thing. You're
Right.
probably going to wind up being burnt out any old way. It's just
Right.
a different, paycheck or whatever, a different gig. And so I had to do that kind of introspective work. And so I would urge everyone to do that kind of introspective work. And once you identify some of the things that you might want to pursue, start doing them on a small level. I'm not urging anyone to go out and quit their job, but I do believe that, my book, the man who photographed this, is one of the people
Yes.
that I mentored, who was a music industry executive who does very well for himself, but decided that he wanted to study photography and just started doing it. You see that kissy face picture right behind me over my shoulder?
Okay.
That's me. And he took that of me. And I was
Okay.
like, you know what? When I was like, I have to do a book cover, I was like, I'm going to hire him to do my book cover. And so he did. And now he's been on a billboard. Over 10,000 people have him in his art in their home.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's amazing,
Yeah.
right? And he still has his job as a big fancy music executive, but he also now has this passion that he's pursuing. And
Right.
will eventually be able to quit that big fancy job because this
Mm-hmm.
new job, this new life that he's pursuing is going to pay off. So I say start small. He started off taking just pictures of his friends and things like that. Nice on
Mm-hmm.
my book cover. He did a bunch of collateral for Tamar Braxton. You know what I mean? My sister's a home cook. She now has a catering business. There's I mentioned Super Scent, a young woman out of New Orleans who was cleaning houses and being a waitress in the French Quarter and now runs a multi-million-dollar makeup business because she loved doing makeup tutorials on YouTube and she wanted to create a makeup line that was fun for people who don't want to be makeup artists but just love makeup. And that's
Right.
a huge business. So that's what I urge people to do. Find out what it is that you are interested in doing and just start doing it. It doesn't have to be some huge, extravagant thing, and it doesn't need to blow up your whole life. I blew up my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not advising you because I have a very high tolerance for risk. I'm a
Yeah.
gambler. So I love, love, love. I love to roll the damn dice. But everybody
Yeah.
ain't like that. So
Yeah.
I'm not advising you to do that. Once you do that, then here comes the tough part. You got to start doing it. Ooh. And then guess what? You got to stick to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell you a secret.
Okay.
Didn't take you a year to create the life that you're currently miserable in, that you're dissatisfied about. So
Mm-hmm.
don't expect it to take a year to pivot, to change, to remix that very same life. It's going to take longer. It
Mm-hmm.
takes years. It's like a callus when, it takes years to build up that thick, like just a layer of like, gosh, I'm really unhappy in this life. It takes years traditionally. And it's going to probably take years to dismantle that life. But that's okay.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
You have to stick to it. You have to be tenacious. You have to be resilient. And then you have to also look out for signs from God because a lot of times people are looking for that aha moment that's big and grand and is in technicolor. Well, guess what? My aha moments happen in such small and amazing ways. In the book, I have a chapter, Broke but Blissful. I am literally on VH1, BET, and E, writing for Interview Paper, Essence Glamour, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
dead broke. But I knew because God had allowed me to have all these opportunities, I knew I was on the right path, and I stuck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
tenacity and resilience is a big part of changing your life, of making that pivot. And then, and just looking out for the signs. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of wonderful signs. Last thing, because I know we got to go, but I've had this right now at the age of 54. Well, let me just backtrack. 45,
Mm-hmm.
38, I quit my job at Rolling Stone. 45, I get Bravo's Fashion Queens. 50, I get Page Six TV. At
Mm-hmm.
54, I write this book. And also now at 54, I've just begun to act.
Ooh.
And
Is it something you can talk about yet, or
I booked my first role, and I'm good at it.
Okay, that's right, because you are going to be in an EGOT. Is that Tell everyone what is an EGOT.
So in my book, I'll talk about which is the Dare to Dream chapter. This is Insane Dream.
Hmm.
Bevy Smith wants to be, no, will be an EGOT. And that means an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony winner. There are very few people that are EGOTs. Whoopi Goldberg, who happens to be my fairy godmother, is one of the few people in the world that's an EGOT. I was just
Hmm.
on The View promoting my book, and I said on national TV where millions of people could hear, I said, well, I'm going to be like Whoopi. I'm going to be, no, I said, I'm going to be like Whoopi. I'm going to be an EGOT. And Whoopi said, and you will be, Bevy. You will be. And that was a huge moment. And let me tell you why it was a huge moment. It was a huge
Hmm.
moment because, again, so many of us don't dare to dream because we are afraid of failure and we're also afraid of criticism and ridicule from others. So,
Hmm.
me saying that on national television, with millions of people watching, was me being bold and standing in my dream
Hmm.
and willing it to be manifested. And you
Right.
have to start doing that. And maybe may not be as big and bold as an EGOT, but start by writing down your craziest dream, the dream that you
Right.
don't even want to talk to yourself about.
Right.
Down. And then start
Right.
telling absolute strangers. Maybe don't tell your sister. Maybe don't tell your husband. Maybe don't tell your best friend. But you know that lady in the grocery store that's ringing up your stuff, and you like got a magazine, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I love Rachel Ray. I love to follow her recipes." And you say, "Well, in about 5 years, I'm going to be Rachel Ray."
Hmm. Hmm.
And start telling people, and you
Right.
will be amazed at the power that has in the universe.
When you speak it.
When you
Yeah.
speak to baby, it's
Yeah.
powerful. So yes, I'm speaking about my EGOT situation, and I gotta
All
get
right.
that plan. So
All
y'all watch
right.
me work and watch me twerk.
Well, I can't have you on. I can't talk to Bevy Smith and we don't talk about men. And listen, I like how you say in the book too, my lovers. This love, like you specifically call them lovers.
Yes.
Is there a reason that?
Because for many years, as much as I was in service to men, I also made sure that men were in service to me. So I've always had a kind of goddess kind of sensibility about my encounters with men. So
Mhm.
I was never the woman who was like um, shy, insecure, none of it. I was always very much in control of my sensuality and my sexuality.
Mhm.
So that's why they were my lovers because they loved up on
Mhm.
me.
Mhm. And
Because I
I
was
like
like
how
that.
you never let anyone change you or your style of dress. um I get the same issues. Don't you think? If you want to be in this industry, if you want to be talking to authors and talking, there's a certain way you're supposed to look and present yourself. Speak to the women out there who people may be telling them that you're supposed to look this way if you want to do that. You're supposed to dress this way if you want to do that. If you want to be successful, if you want to get further. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think that what we do have to look at culture, corporate culture, right?
Mhm.
The way I dressed the Bob is not the way I dressed the Rolling Stone. Like I put a different kind of, I was still very bevy, but it was a different type of bevy, simply because, you know, um, corporate culture is a real thing,
Yeah.
and there are places where if I had shown up in fur at Rolling Stone magazine, that's not going to work for them because
Hmm.
the owner was like a PETA person. Like one of
Hmm.
my bosses was like a PETA person. So I'm not going to poke the bear. So
Hmm.
I'll leave the fur at home,
Hmm.
pick it up, when I get off work or on the weekend. But on the larger part of it, I will tell you this: people will always find a reason as to why you're not worthy of something. And your style of dress is often a very easy target for people. You know, working with Black networks, I have never had my breasts critiqued, my cleavage critiqued as much as when I work with Black networks. it's always very interesting to me because I'm like, you would think they would appreciate it, um, but oftentimes no. But what I decided was that I was going to do so well. I was going to
Mhm.
succeed. I was going to be excellent at my job that they wouldn't even care one way or the other. They would just be like, "Oh, okay. Well, you know what? When you hire Bevy, that's what's going to come along with it." And I'm proud to say that now that's a part of my brand, my cleavage. Even though today I'm all covered up, but that's a part of my brand, and I'm happy that I stayed the course, and I literally was like, "No, you're gonna love these." You know what I mean? Like I was like, y'all gonna get with the program. My book, one of the titles I wanted to name it was Dreams Bigger Than My. And the only reason why I didn't name it that, the only reason why I didn't name it that is because I knew I wouldn't be able to speak at churches. I knew I wouldn't be able to sell it at like Target and Walmart. So I was like,
Yeah.
worth it. So I had to change. But really, like I love my breast. I love my shape. I love my body. I love the thickness of
Yep.
me and everything. You know what I mean? And so I admire it.
Uh-huh.
But not everyone will. But you
Right.
have to be able to stand strong. And I don't believe in like the whole body positivity craze that's going on because I just believe that once we call it something like that, we're like acknowledging that we need to be positive about it. Like in my book, I talk about the whole word brave. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
to say I'm brave because I don't have body image, of self-loathing about my body.
Right.
What's the
Right.
brave? What? Why am I brave? Because I like the way
Right.
I look. Do you call
R-
Gwyneth Paltrow brave because she liked the way she looked? Now,
Right.
for me,
Exactly.
I don't particularly like the way Gwyneth Paltrow looks.
Right.
You know what I mean?
We'll
But
call Lizzo brave, and
huh?
we'll call Lizzo brave, and we'll call my girl Frenchie Davis brave. Right? Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I
So
don't
no.
acknowledge that. I don't acknowledge that.
Yeah.
I don't accept that. And so to the women out there that are perhaps being criticized, and you could be from one spectrum to the other. You could be very thin, or you could be Miss Thickums. People are always gonna have something to say about the way you look.
Exactly.
They're always gonna have a critique. No one gets away unscathed, but you have to be good with who you are. We mentioned The Artist's Way. The other book that I love was The Four Agreements. And for me, being impeccable with your word means being impeccable with your word. Most importantly, the word that you speak on yourself. So as women, oftentimes we can catalog 10, 20 things easy. What's wrong with us? But if you
Mm.
say, what's great about you? You might say something like, I'm a mother, I'm a great mom, I'm a great wife, or, I'm a really great leader in my corporation. No, no, no. That's not you. What's great about you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can catalog all the things. I love these lips. I have a perfect Cupid's bow. I love my cheekbones. I love my
You're
daddy's.
beautiful.
Thank you. But I love my daddy's nose. I
Mhm.
love my almond shaped eyes. I love a lot of things. I can
Mhm.
catalog these things. I love my breasts,
Mhm.
which if you can see them, they're beautiful complexion.
All right.
I love these things, but I can catalog that. And so that's me being impeccable with my word. Instead of running myself down and being like, oh, but I don't like, in the book I talk about having a bunion. I don't like that I got a bunion. I can't wear a strappy sandal. Okay, girl, well, you figure it out. You know,
Right.
but
Right.
sometimes we do these things ourselves. Also, too, I wear my natural hair out.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to talk about the natural hair journey and what a journey it is and how tough it is. And I will literally tell you, when I decided to take my weave out and switch to wigs so that I could have the versatility of having my own hair, I miss washing my hair and touching my own hair and all that kind of stuff. I literally washed my hair, conditioned it, put some kind of leave-in cream in it, like something from the Dime store. I did not do any research. I did not check to see what's the grade of my hair was, what kind of number and letter it was attached
Right.
to.
Right.
I literally got up, did all those things that I just told you, and went out into the streets.
Okay.
I am not playing these games with people.
Right.
I'm not going to say that what grows out of my head is a complicated and arduous journey. It puts
Absolutely.
this on us because we also have ideas about the way even our natural hair should look.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not knocking nobody, but I will tell you this: the whole I look good with short hair. I look very
Hmm.
pretty with short hair. So guess what? I don't worry about shrinkage.
Hmm.
But that we because even with natural hair, we're so preconditioned to buy into these standards of beauty. The ringlets have to look like this versus tight coils.
Hmm.
um oh my gosh, you got to go in a video and pull down your coil so that people can see I do have hair. I do
Right.
have hair, but it's shrink.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I talk about all of that in my book,
Hmm.
about just loving yourself as you are,
Hmm.
and maybe making a few adjustments
Hmm.
if you're very unhappy. But no, we gotta get back to that. And I don't even know
Okay.
why I went into this tirade, but
Right.
oh,
Right.
it's about body, about talking to all the lovely ladies out there about body and what people will say or try and make you feel. But that's
Right.
up to them.
So, Bevy, you give us such great revelations all throughout this book. What I'd like to know from you is when it's all said and done, and by the time you leave this earth, what revelation do you want to leave us with? What do you want us to know, or what mark will you want to have made on this world? What impression? What revelation? Okay. And what is that? What does it say?
It's greater later. That is the number one mantra of Revelations. Because when I tell you I am 54 years old and I'm still going, and this is not, and I'm already planning for the next, I'm already planning for my 60s, I'm already planning for my 70s. In the book, I mentioned Norman Lear, Cicely Tyson, Jane Fonda, Rita Moreno. These are people that are still going. 80s and 90s. That's the kind of person I'm going to be. So, yes, I believe it gets greater later. I know that I'm going to keep going. And I want to urge everyone else to keep going. You know, I think one of the saddest things is that, you know, we have people that are in their 20s and in their 30s panicking about aging.
Mhm.
So I hope that this book can inspire people to know that, like, no, it's never too late to pursue your dream. It's never too late to pick up a passion and make it a purpose. You know, you just have to believe that you can do these things, and you have to try. You know, oftentimes we will tell ourselves that something is just too daunting, and we won't even try. That's not even, I mean, I can't even imagine what my life would be like if I hadn't tried my hand at all of these things that I'm interested in. And as I said, I continue to try my hand at things I'm interested in. You know, I just booked my first acting gig. And
All
I
right.
also, over the summer, thank you, over the summer at the age of 53, in the book I talk about that in my 60s, I want to do art and architecture curation. Well, at the age of 53, over the summer, I actually was an art consultant on a film. I
Okay.
select the art that's going to appear in a major film, a feature film. So
Okay.
it's greater later. And I'm going
Greater
to do
later.
all those things that I set out to do. I'm going to do high kicks on Broadway. I'm going to belt out a song on Broadway. I'm going to be a stand up comedian. I'm going to produce TV shows and films and documentaries. I'm
Okay.
going to have a beautiful home that overlooks the water, where I have a wonderful lover, my life partner, my companion, who will wash my hair and grease my scalp on Sunday evenings. And we're gonna make
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, healthy fish dishes and some nice vegetables, and then we're gonna make love to the roar of the ocean.
Okay.
It's greater later.
Well, that sounds good to me.
Oh, don't it though?
It does. It does.
And I'm
Yeah. Okay.
already implementing these little tiny parts in my present day life. So that's another thing too. You don't have to wait. So like part of my that life that I just told you about, that's natural hair Beppy. That's why I started
Mhm.
wearing my natural hair. I'm getting ready for him.
All right.
Getting ready for that life.
Okay. Well then, revelations. Revelations, everyone. Um,
Revelations, darling. I hope you've been bevelated.
I have been bevelated. Look, look. You're the first guest on this new Lit Lounge remix.
Oh,
It was a much smaller production, but now for the debut of it, there could not have been a better book for me to read. Taking a risk, taking a risk on something that I really love and enjoy. And your book really inspired me and gave me a blueprint. And that's why I love authors. You all give us blueprints on how to do it. So I thank you, thank you, thank you. And so many people will thank you. I want to stress it's not just a book for Black women. It's a book for everyone, especially in a time like this. So thank you so much for bearing your soul and giving us your revelations.
thank you, my love. I really appreciate it. It's great being with you.
All right, all right. We love you, Bevy.
Love you too.
For 16 years, I've been able to do the job which is the love of my life, the career that's the love of my life. And what is that? It's working with authors. I live and breathe books. I have been able to meet some of the most amazing people, been told the most amazing stories, and most of all, what I love about authors is that they're able to leave you with an actual blueprint, their book, which shows you that if they can do it, you can do it too. So this is why I love this industry so much because the same excitement in which I read books, I want to be able to offer that to you and for you to get just as excited, for you to get just as emotional about a book. We are storytellers, and it is a blessing for me to be able to work in this industry.